I think believing in yourself is important. And sometimes as women, we put ourselves last and we suffer from not believing in our own capabilities. And sometimes it takes somebody else believing in us to then realize that, oh my God, maybe there's some truth to this, that I do have something that I can contribute, right? So that's been hard, but it's a muscle that we need to continuously develop. Is reinforce the belief in yourself either through small successes, or learning, or positive self-talk.
Welcome back, everyone, and thanks so much for being here for today's episode on She Lights the Way, where we dive into the journeys of unsung women who are making their mark in our world. In earlier conversations on She Lights the Way, I've talked about my passion in uplifting underrepresented voices, and I've reflected on how important mentors and advocates have been in my career. Today's guest has truly been instrumental in my own journey, both personally and professionally. Nithya Ruff and I met many years ago now through our work in helping increase the diversity within communities in the tech industry, diversity in so many different forms. Professionally, she has been a steadfast mentor and advocate, seeing me through some of my most challenging times. Personally, she introduced me to my husband. Today, Nithya is head of the open source office at Amazon and chair of the Linux Foundation board of directors. During our conversation, she talks about how her father's unwavering belief in her potential and his lessons about independence shaped her life choices. She also talks about pivotal moments that have defined her journey, from her early fascination with computer science to her influential role at the Linux Foundation. And she shares how important mentorship is to her and the advocates who have opened doors for her, with a focus on the significance of community in her life. So let's get started. Nithya, it is wonderful to talk with you today. We have known each other for so long, and I have so appreciated you really over most of my career. You've been such a champion and an advocate for me. And so it's lovely to talk to you today.
It's so lovely to talk with you, and I really cherish our friendship and over the years, and the fact that I got to introduce you to your husband is a great pleasure and a feather in my cap for me. This is good stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's dive into your poignant, your remarkable story. Can you talk a little bit about yourself and talk about what are you doing today? Where are you, in your journey?
Um, Very interestingly, it's been about 40 some years since I came to the US. I grew up in India, came here that many years ago. Today, I run the open source office for Amazon. I also have a community role that I play. I represent the community as at large or an independent director on the board of the Linux Foundation. So I'm really in the heart of open source in my current role. What really excites me and about the place I am today is that um, it's challenging me in every single way, intellectually, and it's also leveraging everything I've learned all these years, the scale and scope of work that Amazon does, and the Linux Foundation does has been a place that's really fulfilling, my desires to kind of be fully actualized, if you will, or be fully impactful. So I'm really happy. Family is at a good place, and it's also good to be able to use everything I've built as knowledge and experience over the years, finally in a good way.
Yeah. And we talked earlier about all of these different experiences that you've had along the way. It's like all of the dots are connecting, they're all coalescing into what you're doing today, both at Amazon Web Services and at the Linux Foundation. Can you talk a little bit about what some of the pivotal moments or what were some of the inflection points along your path?
When I look back, and none of our paths are straight, it's a curved path. One of the most important decisions I made, I think, and thanks to my father, was coming to the US. That was a very pivotal decision. My life would have been very different if I had stayed in India, and also to pursue computer science. And this was really his advice that that is the future and that's what I should really focus on. This was back 40 years ago when the world was just breaking into digital and starting to learn computer science as a subject. That I think was very pivotal, my choice there. The second one is, and I say this to my kids all the time, is finding a partner in life who compliments you, who supports you, who's your cheerleader, who is there by your side through this journey. And I must admit, I've always not appreciated my husband, but he's been there through thick and thin, and he's been one of my biggest supporters and allowed me to fully immerse myself in my work and be successful at what I do. The third pivotal moment, I would say, is in 1998, discovering open source for the first time. And it was early days of open source. Sun Microsystems, HP, Silicon Graphics, IBM were beginning to kind of say, what does it mean to ship Linux-based servers? What does it mean to work with communities? And what is open source? What are the gaps? How do we work with it? Um, that was heady, and I fell in love with open source, and I've been doing open source ever since. It kind of laid for me what I should be working on. And the last one I would say is um, being invited to be on the board of the Linux Foundation 10 years ago. This was in Berlin at the Open Source Summit Europe. Jim Zemlin, says, "I'd love to have lunch with you. I have something to ask you." And so at lunch, he says, "Would you like to join the board?" And I said, "Wow, this I had never even thought about serving in that way." And being able to serve as an independent director representing the community really helped me grow tremendously this last 10 years. And it opened a lot of doors for me. So I would say those are four of the most pivotal moments in my career and my life.
It occurs to me that one of the through lines mapping from your earliest years in India, when I know your father used to invite you in to some of the discussions that he was having when you were young. And then you talked about your husband and him being such a big advocate and champion for you along the way. And then Jim Zemlin inviting you to be really a very pivotal part of the Linux Foundation. Um, the through line, right, of the advocates that you had in your life, and you have certainly been one for me. The male advocates, the male allies that we've both had. When I My earliest years of, my father, um, asking my sister and I, always thinking ahead. Where do you want to steer your ship? You have all of the freedom in the world to be able to do this. Where do you want that? Where would you like that to be? Where would you like that to go? To now, as you mentioned, you were the one who introduced me to my husband, and Guy being such a very big advocate, in my life. So it's interesting as we sit here today and talk about some of our pivotal moments that men have really played a role in being advocates for us along our paths.
Absolutely.
It's really, yeah.
Throughout history, men have been in a position of power. Men have known the game, and men have been in areas, and so opening doors to women to join and giving them a chance to succeed. I didn't know anything about being on a board until I joined a board. But if you're not given that opportunity, it's hard to know what it means to be on the board and learn how to be a board member, learn how to strengthen your influence and your ability to make an impact. So I think advocates are extremely important, and sponsors are extremely important, who speak on your behalf behind closed doors and who say, yes, I think we should take a chance on this person and believe in this person.
With your family in India, or now the family that you and Brian have built together, has your family had an impact, or it influenced your decisions along the way?
Absolutely. Uh, as I mentioned before, my father was a huge influence on my life. He was an engineer and had been an executive at very large companies for a long time, and had himself championed many women leaders in his company. And he would always invite me to come sit with the men. The men would separate from the women in parties, and he would always invite me to come sit with the men and talk business and talk economics and talk about the lunar landing, or other things. And the other element that he impressed upon me very early on is that a woman should stand on her own legs, and that she should not depend upon anybody, that she should be financially independent. And so it was such an important driver for him that you need to have your self respect, and you need to have a place, in the world. And sadly, in many situations, women have been economically in a very bad situation, and that puts them in a spot of weakness. So that was a big, big driver for me always, that I needed to, have my own income. So next family decision that happened in America is, when our children were little, we were saying, we really wanted one of us to be staying home and taking care of the kids, because we just didn't like dropping them off very early in the morning and picking them up in the evening. And both of us had very busy careers. And it happened to be that Brian, my husband, stayed home and took care of the children. And there were two reasons for that. One was, I said, I cannot give up my income and my financial independence. I've worked very hard for it. The second is, I felt that of the two of us, I had more strengths in working in companies and networking and building my career. And he had more strengths in, being very disciplined about taking care of the children and caring for, what they needed. So we worked on our strengths, and those are the things that have really helped me find my place in the world. I would say having a stable situation at home for the children, it freed me up to really do what I needed to do.
And what a beautiful partnership, to come together and really figure out together what your strengths are, to pursue those. It just I love the way that the two of you came together to figure all that out and really navigate some some difficult things there, right? We sacrifice, to make life work, right? To make all of this work. Um, can you talk a little bit about your daughters today? I absolutely love this. And how how your relationship with them has changed over the years.
I that is one of the things that I'm most proud of is my relationship with my daughters. Um, because Brian was the main caregiver in our family and I was working all the time, I often missed swim meets. My oldest still reminds me that I never showed up for some of her swim meets, or I missed school events. And I carried that guilt with me for a long time. And it wasn't until they were older and in college that we started kind of really developing a better relationship. And I intentionally said to myself, I am going to make up for all those lost years. I'm going to build a trusting relationship. And so she turned around to me the other day and said, don't worry about those early years, Mom, because you're more than made up for it now. I trust you, I turn to you, I come to you and speak about things that I wouldn't speak about with anybody else. So I'm really, really happy to see that. My oldest is, she finished her MD and she's doing her residency. I'm very proud of her. It's been a long and hard journey. My youngest is a passionate human rights advocate, and she worked in the media at CBS News, and then she's been working in public relations, really advocating for nonprofits that need media help and guidance.
I love that. And they've taken so much of their mom, right? And all of the great work that you do. And I can see, right, the influences that both you and Brian have had on your girls. It's been great to see them, you know, make their way in the world. And now they're just such incredible forces. It's wonderful to see them, really becoming their own, persons,
Yeah,
and having so much of you as a part of them. That's just beautiful to see.
it is. It is. That's one of the most proud things in my life is the kids and the relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as you look back over your career and over your life, really, what have been your biggest inspirations? What's inspired your journey?
I think there was some force in me always saying you need to be everything you can be the best version of yourself you can be. I felt that my parents had invested so much time in me. I had spent so much time acquiring this education and experience and knowledge, and I've always kind of done a lot of work on myself where I'm questioning, self evaluation, taking classes, etc. And all of that was to say, am I being the best I can be? Am I making the best impact on the world that I can? I don't want to have regrets in my last few days where I say I wasn't giving my all as a parent, or I wasn't giving my all, working in open source or as a friend or as a mentor, etc. So that's what drives me is am I doing the best I can and keep kind of pushing that bar, if you will, to keep rising.
It's beautiful. When I think about the the friendship that we've had over the years, you have certainly been an inspiration for me. And I also, gosh, and these other women who have inspired me on my own journey and have been, mentors for me. And one of the women who really encouraged me to do that, to give more of myself, and saw that I had a skill set, not a technical, not a coding skill set, but a skill set of journalism and writing and all of that, was Carol Barrett.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you've had mentors along the way that really it guided you, or at different points in along your path.
You know, you mentioned the open source community, and I think all of us have benefited so much from standing on the shoulders of others, but also others who've role modeled what it means to give back, to be successful in open source, to find their own niche and way of contributing. Dawn Foster has her own way of contributing to open source. Um, Denise Cooper has been another, wonderful inspiration. Zahida Borat, so many people that we work in open source have, um, to me, opened doors for me to say I can do it too. I remember going to my first open source summit back in the day, maybe about 15 years ago, and as an attendee and watching speakers and saying, I want to speak one day. I want to be, one of the respected people here, and asking people like Ricky Hensley, how should I do it? What's the first step? And people actually reviewing my abstracts and saying, hey, this is the way you can do it, helping me, write my talk, and then doing that first talk, and then doing another talk, and doing working in OpenStack, women of OpenStack, and then working in Yocto like we did. It just
Yeah.
starts growing. Your confidence starts growing because of all of these people around you, so they who strengthened you.
Wow, so well said. Yes, I so, and I'm sure you know this. I so identify with that. You know, it was a gift. I think that the OpenStack community was so welcoming and inclusive. And that's really where I started to lean in, Carol was working on the enterprise working group, and that's really was my first taste of, oh wow, I think I do have a talent that will help this community.
That's right.
And then, yeah, and then starting to moderate panels and talk about uh, some issues around elevating women in the community. And honestly, it was, on one hand, it was really scary because I actually, as you know, I don't actually like public speaking. and, and on the other, it was a great challenge. And if you focus on the work that you're doing,
Yes.
then the speaking isn't, it becomes, and maybe it's through practice as well, but if you consider that you're talking more about the work, right, and getting that out there, then
Exactly right.
yeah.
Exactly right. I think the passion in your work and the work itself becomes so easy and exciting to speak about. And I'm sure I'm
Yes.
forgetting a lot of other wonderful people who open doors for me. But you bring up a really good point, which is I think as a woman, you really need to be a part of a community, have a support system around you of other friends and women like you. I have the open source community. I have a South Asian women's community that I belong to, who give me another kind of nourishment because they come from the same background that I do. And then there's a group I belong to called the firstboard.io, which gives me the sense of the same purpose. We all want to be on a board. And so we share that, passion for that. So belonging to communities, I think, and supporting each other and uplifting each other is more important for a woman than anyone else, I think. And going into our third phase of our lives, also, loneliness is what kills a lot of people, and we need to continue to be in communities and be connected to other humans and find purpose in the work that we do.
This is a great segue into you've had such life experience. What is some of the advice that you would give to others?
Um, a number of them. I think believing in yourself is important. And sometimes as women, we put ourselves last and we suffer from not believing in our own capabilities. And sometimes it takes somebody else believing in us to then realize that, oh my God, maybe there's some truth to this, that I do have something that I can contribute, right? So that's been hard, but it's a muscle that we need to continuously develop. Is reinforce the belief in yourself either through small successes or learning or positive self-talk. I think there's lots of different ways to do that. The second is advocate for yourself. Ask for what you want. Don't wait for somebody to come tell you, hey, we want to pick you to join this team, or we want to promote you. Go ask, what does it take to be promoted? And am I ready for it? Can you help me get there? And the worst they can say is no. The best they can say is, we already think you are great and we'd love to help you. So all kinds of doors open when you ask. And the third, I would say, is it's hard, especially being a woman of color. Sometimes you kind of wonder, is this door closed because I'm a woman? Is this door closed because of biases? And to kind of just persist and be resilient and keep moving through all those ups and downs, and taking the courage to go through that door, um, you know, and persist in something. Sometimes we give up too quickly because we see a no, but you have to go past that and keep doing it.
Wow. So there's a lot that you said there that I'm just like, yes, yes, and yes. So I would be remiss in not mentioning this. When you talked about believing in yourself, and I know I talked about this moment, it was a pivotal moment for me in my own career, um, that being in Toronto, and it was the same moment, that same evening that you introduced me to my husband, but that dinner. And I talked about this with Jennifer Clower in an earlier episode of She Lights the Way, where you and Guy had both really said, wait a minute, you may not be the most technical one at this table, but you still have talents and skill sets that will help the community.
Yes.
And that was a very pivotal moment for me. So I would be remiss in not mentioning that in our conversation here today. Um, the other one that you mentioned in terms of asking, right? How do I attain this? Or, you see something, how do I go after that? Um, I remember, gosh, a few years ago, many years ago now, where I I thought, gosh, this is not like me. I wouldn't normally do this, but I'd reached this point where I was confident enough in my abilities that one group had dissolved and we were going into another group. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to ask for what I think, I would like to do in this new group. And it worked out. Right. And I thought, wow, like I would never have thought about, myself as having asked for that. But it did teach me quite a bit in if you never ask for what it is you want, um, you'll never get it, right?
That's
It will
exactly
never
right.
be there for you.
And managers and people around you are not mind readers, and they don't know what you want to get, and your timeline, and your ambition and your desires and your strengths. And so putting it out into the world and saying, hey, this is what I'd like to do, or this is where I want to go. What do you think? And how do I get there? How did you get there? What was your journey? Like you're doing, Nicole, and sharing people's journeys, and it kind of opens up possibilities for people, and they say, wow, okay, I can see myself doing that or getting there, or there are nuggets that you can pick up from different journeys. So
Yes.
I appreciate that very much.
Yes, yes. And then you also shared the ability to persist in the face of an obstacle, right? And I identify with that as well. And in fact, during one of my most difficult times, you were a fierce champion for me. So thank you for that.
Ah,
Um,
I'm so glad.
Yes, yes, it meant so much to me, and it also took me um, persisting, as that difficult situation unfolded, persisting through that, and really following my passion and following my heart, and doing what I thought was the right thing to do, and something that would help others. But you were instrumental in in helping me navigate that difficult situation.
I am very, very glad. I always say to my kids as well that in the darkest of days and times, you've got to remind yourself that the daylight will come, good times will come back again, and that you have been through these troughs and you do come out to the top. And you have to build that muscle of kind of enduring through that trough, to come out and be resilient again. It's hard to do when you're young, I think, because you haven't seen that cycle yet. And so you say, oh my gosh, there couldn't be anything worse than what I'm going through now. But just
Right.
soaking it in and then saying, how do I get out of this? I was saying to someone about procrastination. If you do something small that gives you a sense of victory and completion, then that kind of gives you more energy to go tackle something else and something else. And soon you're on a momentum and you're on a roll. So you just, those are some of the skills I think that I am so glad I built, over the years, which all come together when you're older, and why we should be hiring and retaining more older employees in the workplace as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the other things that I think is a through line for you and what I've seen you do has been mentoring, propelling others, supporting others, and honestly, lighting the way for others.
It's really interesting. Many of us women are used to being the underdog, the one mentored, the one kind of asking everybody for advice and support. And so at some moment, you kind of start realizing, maybe I'm in a position where I can help somebody, that I'm not always the receiver, that I can be the giver. And that moment took a while for me because I was so used to not believing in myself that I didn't think I could give anything to anybody else. And so when that pivot happened, I started saying, I can open doors. I can introduce people to my network. I can share how I, approached a problem or how I built that muscle, or I can celebrate their success. I can introduce them to classes or books or people that help me. And so it just kind of starts rolling, and people then, come to you, or you see situations where you say, I think I can add value here. And some of the situations, I mean, some of the venues have been um, our communities like OpenStack and open source and Linux Foundation, etc. There's an opportunity to mentor in our events, which I love. There's an opportunity to mentor at work. We have something called Sponsor for Success, where we are paired with someone who wants to be paired with a leader, and they want someone who sponsors them, not mentors them. And so they bring a topic that they want to discuss at a meeting. How did you handle this? Or I'm struggling with this. How did you, do this when you were going through this? And it's been enormously satisfying to kind of continue to do that. And I'm thinking I need a more scalable way of helping others. And so I'm looking at maybe writing a book, or finding other platforms where I can, podcasts like this really help because you are able to hopefully share something and inspire someone, or uh, light a fire in someone. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great segue into what's next. What possibilities, out into the future inspire you or excite you the most? What are you looking at doing next? You just mentioned writing a book, which would be magical. Yes. Yeah.
It's the hardest thing to do, I must admit. I think it was Julia Louis Dreyfus and her podcast about older women, that you introduced me to, Nicole, that I love. Um, it just occurred to me that, three phases in life, right? We have the early years where we are learning, and then the middle years where we are doing. And I feel like I'm moving into the third act, where I want to write books. I want to do more service on boards. I want to spend more time with my daughters. My biggest joy will be to see them happy and successful in whatever they define success as, and be there for them, and someone who they want to come home to, who they trust and want to talk to, and not, oh, mom's calling me again, how annoying. So those are some of the things I want to do. I want to travel. I'm so afraid it's that other clock ticking, which is I'm so afraid of not having the good health of being able to travel and walk and do things. Travel is so challenging these days. It takes a lot of energy to travel. So I want to do it while I still can.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned something there, and I'd love to dig into that a little bit more. I know that the definition of success is different to each of us, and it also changes over time for each of us. What does success mean to you?
Success early in my career used to be money, promotions, titles, recognition. And I'm an extrovert, so I didn't mind public recognition. But today, success is doing everything I can to be fully utilized, to make an impact, to do meaningful work, to be happy with who I am and with my life, and to take the good and the bad in my stride, not to be going up and down, but just very even keeled about it. Being there for my girls. I think happiness is the package that I would say that I'm defining this time as. Success is being happy and being happy with who I am and what I do, and making an impact and doing meaningful work.
And that so resonates with me. I think that's one of the reasons that I moved into focusing on this project full time, was to work on something that meant something to me that I thought could help others. So,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So, as we wrap up today, Nithya, what does She Lights the Way mean to you?
It is such a nice title that you chose, because uh, we need to shine the light on the path forward for people. You need to, whatever you've learned, whatever you have succeeded at, it's you need to share with others and make it slightly easier and better for them to walk the same path or different paths. So I think if we keep giving back and if we keep opening doors for people, it'll become easier and easier for more women to not just succeed, but be happier in what they do. So thank you for giving people an opportunity to shine the light and share the light.
Thank you, Nithya. Thank you for inspiring me all these many years, for being such a, really, more than a mentor, a sponsor, an advocate for me. I have so appreciated our friendship over the years, and I am so glad that you've shared your story on She Lights the Way.
I am very grateful to you for giving me this opportunity to share my story and share some of the lessons that I've learned, through the years. And I hope it's useful for others. I have enjoyed listening to all the podcasts that you have, and I'm so excited for people to listen to your stories. So many wonderful women featured on She Lights the Way.
So there you have it. Nithya has played such a key role in my own journey, and I am sure I'm not alone. I'm continually thankful for her, and I extend my heartfelt gratitude to her for sharing her remarkable journey and insights. If you'd like to learn more about Nithya and her work, go ahead and connect with her on LinkedIn and follow her contributions at Amazon and the Linux Foundation. All of those links are in the show notes. As always, I welcome your feedback on this conversation and the She Lights the Way project. You can shoot me an email at nicole@shelightstheway.com or leave a comment on any of the social handles for the project. See you next time.